started at sea in 1983, and still at sea. And one of the things that came up earlier was isolation. And on cruise ships, we still have now during COVID, still have quarantine coming back on board. And so I just this morning was let out after 7 days of quarantine. Used to be 14 days, but now they're back down to 7 days. So of course, being isolated within the four walls of a cabin, not everyone handles that either. And but lucky for us, they've given us all cabins with balconies, so we can get out and get some fresh air.
Oh, that's good. It's good to know that you've got your freedom back now. And I wonder if you could let us know about some of the incidents that you've experienced in your career.
Well, these type of incidents, I've had a couple, not with my present company, but in the past. The first one, I was a young second officer on an expedition cruise ship, and a brand new ship. The captain who was on that ship, I guess most of us at sea, we worked with many different captains and of different calibers, and I think I have to say that he's probably the poorest I worked with when it came to seamanship and so on. So long story short, we were in the Pacific, getting into Fiji for a turnaround, and a tropical cyclone was forecasted. And typically, at least what I would have done, and I think most others would have done, was to go out at sea and ride it out. But his decision was to anchor inside the reefs, between the reefs. And when the wind force came up to about 120, 30 knots, the anchor didn't hold anymore. So we hit the ground, damaged one of the main engine propellers, and then limping around all night on one propeller, during the darkness of night and windy conditions. But when it all went down, the captain, he completely froze. He was shaking like a leaf on the bridge. His voice was trembling, and was wishy-washy, trying to give orders of to make announcements to the guests. I had to make the announcements. I was the youngest guy on the bridge, young second officer, but he was giving conflicting information back and forth, where to tell the guests to go, what lounge, what area of the ship. And in the end, I just made a decision and made the announcement and told the guests where to go, because he was of no use, basically.
Uh-huh. It sounds like he really went into freeze, didn't he? In terms of the sort of the survival response, he wasn't able to make use of his thoughts at that time, and he was that stress response was really apparent. And so, fortunately, you were able to sort that situation out. And so I wonder if there was any sort of what we call sort of smaller T traumas. So obviously there's the larger perhaps marine casualties, and I know you've mentioned there's been fires on board on vessels that you've sailed on in the past that you've dealt with. I wonder if there's any sort of smaller incidents that perhaps don't impact the whole crew, but perhaps smaller numbers of crew or individuals that you've come across.
Well, I think that would be more like deaths in the family at home, or death, what was mentioned earlier, death on board by a passenger or another crew member. But also now during COVID, again, bringing that back, since we're still somewhat in it. Yeah. Our ships were, of course, the cruise industry was hit hard, and our ships were laid up for almost a year and a half. And as I got back on board in May, we had a crew member, I can't remember if it was from India or from the Philippines, but a week after he got back on board, 14 days of quarantine, he got the message that his wife had passed away. And another side of COVID now has been financial strain on crew, not being able to work, not being able to make an income. So he decided to stay on board and not go home for his wife's funeral because of the financial strain of that.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, on a cruise ship, we have a human resources manager on board, a human resources specialist, helping, and they're also making other professionals available. We give them, of course, unlimited access to free phone, to call home, internet, whatever they need, whatever we need to
Mm-hmm.
do the best we can to help them.
Yeah, and it's so important at times of crisis that you can connect with people that are important to you. And I wonder if, you mentioned the captain there who was clearly struggling with a stress response at the crucial time. Would you say that there are, you've seen a sort of an array, a number of different types of response from people on board at times of crisis? Is that something you'd recognise?
I think what I've seen and experienced, and as was mentioned before as well, it's what you hope you'll never experience, and once or twice is once or twice too many. Mm-hmm. But once you've been through those experiences, incidents, at least you know how you will react. Mm-hmm. And I've always said that if management managed to stay calm, that has a domino trickle effect downwards, and it builds confidence within the rest of the crew. Mm-hmm. If management is not able to handle or get stressed or shaky and freeze up, then the crew is going to start getting scared as well. Mm-hmm. If you
oh, sorry, Captain.
No, but as well, we react to these incidents when it's going on in different ways, and mm-hmm. I've always consider myself calm and collected in every situation, and I managed to stay calm and collected in the couple of fires that I experienced in the past. Mm-hmm. But still, no matter how calm and cool you are as a personality in your position, especially as a captain, being at the top, you will have some reaction one way or another. Mm-hmm. The first fire I experienced was in the middle of the night. Did not do the full alarm, but only announced in the crew areas, and we managed to get the fire out within half an hour. But the second one was 7 o'clock in the evening, in the middle of cocktail hour, if you want, guests having their canapes and champagne and drink before going to dinner. And then the first thing I did was to sound the emergency alarm all over the ship. Mm-hmm. But then having, on a cargo ship is one thing, but on a passenger ship, you have the added, if you want to call it, difficulty of having the human element of the guest mm-hmm. Added on top of that. And so then on that second fire, of course, then I have to make announcements right away. And I remember myself, I took a couple of deep physical breaths before I pushed the PA system and started speaking to the guests. Yeah. But within, I don't know, seconds, my mouth was dry as sandpaper. Mm-hmm. And I could feel my heart rate and pulse rate increasing. Mm-hmm. But, managed to stay calm, but I needed a drink of water just to mm-hmm. to get rid of the sandpaper in my mouth.
Uh-huh. And so having that, again, that very, very human response to stress, isn't it? And then just having that, being able to draw on the training and experience to know what practically needs to be done next. I know we're a bit short on time now, but I'm just wondering if there's any advice you might have for any companies or crews who are responsible for helping people prepare for or respond to incidents at sea. I wonder what you might suggest in terms of welfare for people on board. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, what we did, and what I think everybody agrees with that, it is important to talk about it in the aftermath. Mm-hmm. On the ship I was on, where we ran aground, nothing was talked about. It wasn't mentioned again at all in the aftermath. The captain said nothing. The rest said, nobody said anything, never discussed again. But no matter what the incident is, again, people react different during the incident. They react different in the aftermath. Some are open as a book and will talk about it forever almost. And some of the crew are very introverted and basically won't talk at all or won't say anything or won't share their feelings. But I think getting together as a group, those who will not open up and talk at all, at least they can learn from those who will talk. And then by that understand that some of their thoughts that they're dealing with in their head is normal and okay. And in that way, kind of calm themselves. But also one thing that's very important is to in the aftermath of a big serious incident is to get enough rest for yourself and then share the task as a captain, get the chief officer or your second in command to step in while yourself you take a rest, and also to send your crew to get rest, because not only the physical strain while it's happening, but it's gonna in some ways weigh you down for the next week or the next 2 weeks or depending on each personality as well.
So attending to those basic needs again, isn't it? Those physiological needs for rest, but also the power of being together as well, even for a short time, and even if you don't want to talk yourself. And Captain Tysse, thank you ever so much for your time. I know it's only a short amount of time we've got, but thank you ever so much, and it'll be really interesting to hear people's responses in our chat. Thank you.
Thank you. Pleasure.